Most crypto founders who do not get funded have a good project, and it's usually not a bad idea that kills the raise. It's not a weak team. It's not bad timing. It is something much more specific. And once I show it to you, you will not be able to unsee it. I spent 14 years in sales and business development, and over the last 2 years, me and my team helped raise over $200 million across 12 crypto startups, and I went through dozens of investor and founder calls along the way. And during this journey, I discovered these 8 psychological triggers that control how investors make decisions. And I mean actually make decisions, not what they say in the meeting, but what happens inside their head before they ever say yes or no. I call them dark triggers. Not because they're manipulative, because most people are uncomfortable studying how decisions actually works at this level. They would rather believe that a great product sells itself, but it does not. Capital moves for specific psychological reasons, and today I'm going to show you all 8 of them. Trigger number 1. Investors do not move until waiting feels dangerous. Here's something most founders get completely wrong. They think that the investor's job on a call is to evaluate the opportunity, but that is only half of it. The other half, the part that nobody talks about, is that the investor is also quietly asking themselves, what happens if I do nothing? And most of the time, the honest answer is nothing bad happens. They wait, another deal comes, life goes on, so they say, keep us posted, and move on with their week. Your job is to change that calculation, not with fake deadlines or pressure tactics. Those kill credibility fast, but by making the cost of waiting real and specific. What distribution partnership closes in the next 30 days? What market position becomes harder to capture after this round? What the project looks like 6 months from now if this capital doesn't land? There is one question I have seen work really well in these conversations. You ask the investor, what would need to happen for you to look back at this moment and feel like you missed something obvious? That question forces them to think from the other side of the decision. And once they're there, waiting stops feeling natural. It starts feeling like a choice they are actively making. Trigger number 2. Failure builds more trust than success. This one surprises a lot of founders during our clarity calls. When you walk into a room and open with wins, growth numbers, and a big vision, the investor smiles, nods, and mentally puts up a wall because they have heard all of that before. They have funded perfect pitches that collapse 6 months later. They have seen clean decks hide broken teams and broken assumptions. What they actually trust is a founder who has been through something hard and learned a specific lesson from it. The founder who says everything is going well, we're ahead of schedule, gets a polite maybe. The founder who says we launched in the wrong market first, here is exactly why, and here is the rule we now follow because of it. That founder gets a real conversation. There is a simple structure for this. You say what broke, you say why it broke, specifically, not generally. And then you say what permanent change you made because of it. That's it. 3 parts. And when an investor hears that, they stop trying to poke holes in your story because you already poked them yourself. Sharing failure this way is not weakness. It's proof that you operate in reality. And reality is what investors are actually betting on. Trigger number 3. Investors want to feel like they made the decision themselves. There's a big difference between convincing someone and guiding them. When you push hard for a yes, the investor might agree in the room, but the moment you hang up, that conviction starts to fade because it was your energy holding it up, not theirs. The investors who wire money are the ones who feel like they figured it out. So instead of presenting and then defending every point, you guide the conversation. You ask things like, do you want the short version of the model, or should I walk you through how we think about the risk structure? Now, they are choosing how to go deeper. They're not being pitched, they're exploring. And when they raise an objection, which they will, you do not fight it, you validate it first. That is actually a fair concern. And it's exactly why we structured this round the way we did. When investors feel understood, their guard drops. And when their guard drops, you are no longer selling to them. You are talking with them. That is where real decisions happen. Trigger number 4. Investors trust founders who learn fast, not founders who sound certain. Confidence is good. Overconfidence is expensive. When a founder says, "We know this will work," with nothing behind it, the investor hears this person is either naive or hiding something. Certainty without evidence is just noise. What investors actually trust is a founder who can show clear trail of testing, failing, adjusting, and improving. So instead of projecting certainty, you show your process. You say, here's what we tested, here's what did not work and why, here's what we changed, and here's what we are proving in the next 60 days. That is a completely different message. It tells the investor that you are not betting on hope. You are running a real system. This also makes their job easier because now they can explain your decision making to their partners. They can say, this team tests before they scale, they already caught and fixed X, and the next milestone specifically removes Y risk. That is a conversation they can have internally with confidence, and that internal confidence is often what actually moves the allocation. And if you want to show up to investor calls this prepared, grab my free Web3 scaling playbook. It shows you exactly how to structure your raise before you ever get on a call. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep going. Trigger number 5. Objections are not rejections. They are hidden questions. Most founders hear an objection and either defend their position or apologize for it. Both are wrong moves. When an investor says, it feels too early, or the market is crowded, or we would want to see more traction, they're not closing the door. They're telling you that is still uncertain for them. Your job is to translate that objection, not fight it. It feels too early usually means, how is the early stage risk being controlled? The market is crowded usually means, why will distribution hold? We want to see more traction usually means, what is the next proof point and when does it arrive? Once you understand that, the response becomes much more natural. You are not defending yourself. You are showing them that you already thought about the thing that they are worried about. Something like, that is exactly why we structured this phase the way we did. Let me show you how. The investors stop feeling like they are poking holes and start feeling like you're solving a puzzle together. That shift is everything. Trigger number 6. Investors buy a story they can repeat to other people. Here's something most founders never think about. The investor sitting across from you is almost never the final decision. They have partners, they have LPs. After your call or meeting, they need to walk into a room with those people and explain why this deal makes sense. If they cannot explain it simply and confidently, they will not try. So your job is not just to impress the person on the call. Your job is to give them a script they can use after the call. That means making the next 60 to 90 days crystal clear. What gets built, what gets measured, what specific milestones unlock the next phase. When an investor can say to their partners, in the next 8 weeks, they are proving X, and if that holds, Y risk is gone. That is a conversation they can have with confidence. Think about it this way. The raise does not live or die in your call. It lives or dies in the conversation that happens after your call, the one you are not in the room for. The best founders build their story for both rooms, not just the one they are sitting in. Trigger number 7. The right investors will find you when you stop trying to impress everyone. Most founders try to appeal to every investor in the room. They soften their message so nobody is put off. They avoid saying anything that might create friction. And the result is that nobody is actually excited either. You end up with a lot of polite interest and very little conviction. The founders who raise well do the opposite. They say exactly who this is for and who it is not for. This is especially true in crypto, where investors are not just evaluating upside. They're filtering for how you think about risk, about timing, about what matters at this stage. If you invest in teams that prove distribution before they touch token liquidity, this will make a lot of sense to you. You are not excluding people. You're calling in the right ones. The investors who are aligned will lean in. The ones who are not will self-select out. And that is the goal, because a misaligned investor who says yes is actually worse than a pass. They create problems later in governance, in expectations, in the conversations that happen when things get hard. Filtering for the right capital from the start is not just psychological tactics. Trigger number 8. Clarity is the only thing that actually closes. Everything I have talked about in this video comes back to one thing. Uncertainty is the reason deals stall. Not bad products, not bad founders, not bad market. Uncertainty. When an investor cannot clearly picture what success looks like, what the risk is, and how they make money, they do not say no. They just disappear. Clarity is what makes the decision feel safe to make. In crypto, complexity does not sound smart. When someone cannot repeat back what you are building in 2 sentences, they assume the execution will be as complicated as the explanation. So the goal is not to simplify your business. The goal is to simplify the decision. What does the investor needs to believe for this to make sense? What is the one thing you are proving with this round? What does the next milestone look like? And what does it unlock? When those 3 things crisp and clear, the conversation changes completely. You're not pitching anymore. You are removing the last piece of uncertainty standing between the investor and the yes. Just a clear, structured path that makes saying yes feel like the obvious move. This is what I want you to take from this. None of these triggers are tricks. I call them dark because most people are uncomfortable studying how decisions actually work. But understanding decision psychology, not manipulation. It's respect for the investor's reality. They have unlimited time, real risk, and people they answer to. When you show up prepared for all of that, you're not playing games. You're doing your job properly. The raises that work are not always the ones with the best story or the strongest team. They are the ones where uncertainty was removed before the investor ever had a chance to hesitate. That is what we build at Gems. And if you want to see what that looks like for your specific raise, the free Web3 scaling playbook in the description is the best place to start. And remember, the best raise is not the loudest one, it's the clearest one. See you on the next one.